Welcome to another episode of the Indiana Hoosiers Roundtable podcast. I am Brandon Brown, flanked as always by Jack Ankony and Todd Golden. And fellas, there is a bit of an elephant in the room at this point. We've been talking, unfortunately, game after game, week after week. It's been a lot of losses for Indiana here, and now there are some rumblings about Mike Woodson and his future with the program. And I'll turn it over to you guys. You guys are the experts. You're locked in. You're plugged in. Your boots on the ground there. Todd, if you want to kick us off, man, what is the latest, and how much are you locked into this situation, and what's going on?
Well, what we know as of when we're recording this is that there is allegedly agreements being worked out between Mike Woodson and Indiana University in terms of a separation agreement. We believe that he would coach through the end of the year, although that's not confirmed yet. But the nugget of all this is that, in all likelihood, the end is near for the Mike Woodson era at Indiana. And, it's comes on the heels of a pretty poor run of play lately, a lot of fan discontent, and that's where it stands right now. But as of when we record this, none of this is official yet. So that's what's been reported by multiple outlets, including us at Hoosiers on SI, and that's where it stands right now.
And Jack, I mean, the old adage, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there does seem to be quite a bit of smoke at this point. And as Todd said, nothing official. It's coming up on 2:00 on a Friday afternoon. I mean, there's a pretty I don't know, monumental might be too big of a word, but Michigan and Indiana playing on a Saturday afternoon, the return of Dusty May. There's kind of like this whole kind of thing going on. So yeah, just more of what you're hearing and what's going on.
Yeah, I think that is. You mentioned the Michigan game on Saturday. I think that's sort of why some of this news has been coming up sort of yesterday. It wasn't really hard to tell, over the last couple of weeks, the season was clearly trending in the wrong direction. And, you could speculate that Woodson's tenure was not going well. But I think the reason that sort of everything, the timing of this is because of the game Saturday and how, obviously Dusty May, the former Indiana student manager, Indiana native, staff member under Mike Davis. A lot of Indiana fans, it's not hard to see him on social media calling for him to be one of the top candidates if the job does open, which it seems like it will be. So I think the reason that some of this has come out is sort of to tamper down some of the frustration from the fan base in terms of trying to avoid an uglier scene Saturday in terms of, there's already been booing and chants about Woodson's job at the game. And if there's uncertainty about the job going into it, the idea is that maybe that could be even more amplified, so that if you have some clarity on the job, maybe it kind of cools down the heat a little bit. It is sort of my sense for why the timing has been what it's been.
That seems to be the case. I'm not sure that's going to work the way Indiana thinks it's going to work. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know that the crowd they may be kinder to Woodson. I don't know that it's going to affect the way they feel about Dusty May, though. I mean, that may actually amplify some of that. So I'm not sure where Indiana's calculus is. But, when you look at it from a bigger picture point of view, how we got here is that, the team has underperformed the last 2 years. Last year, the team didn't make the NCAA tournament and really struggled and really was on their way to a very poor Big Ten record until they kind of got it together right at the end of the season before they flamed out again in the Big Ten tournament. But, this wasn't something that has happened in the span of a week. I mean, the loss at Wisconsin on Tuesday was very bad. They went down 26-4 and, it was pretty much over before it started. But this process has been a long time in coming. There was some optimism about the way the team was built this year, but it hasn't panned out. And there's been mistakes made at the end of games that have been costly, and some of that is on the coaching staff. And so this isn't, Indiana maybe we're speculating on that. I mean, Indiana may be trying to control the timing of this, but the bottom line is that what's created all of this has been in the post for a long time, and this is when apparently this is all going to be sort of sorted out. But then all that does is create a lot of uncertainty about the rest of the season, and we still don't know yet what this means, and what is actually being negotiated between the university and Woodson. We'll hopefully find that out later today.
Yeah, and you're right, Todd. I mean, I don't think really any path all of a sudden makes it, all good vibes at Assembly Hall, no matter what the path is, because the reality of the situation is that the team is still the team that played, this season. If it's Woodson on the sideline, if it was anyone else on the sideline, that doesn't all of a sudden make this, change the outlook of the season or make Indiana a more talented team or all of a sudden create some optimism. So you're right. I mean, to a certain extent, some of the stuff that might happen on Saturday is impossible to avoid in terms of just fans' emotions and things like that.
Right.
And that's just sort of what it's going to have to be. I mean, there's still eight more Big Ten games if they make the Big Ten tournament and any postseason stuff. So it will definitely be an interesting finish to the season.
Well, and there's, I want to get this out of the way too. There's still practical things to consider here. It's not as simple as we're done. What I'm presuming is being worked on today is what Woodson's agreement would be to leave. I mean, he I've seen some people speculate that if he retires, IU doesn't owe him anything. Well, I seriously doubt Mike Woodson's going to walk away from that kind of money. So we don't know that yet. But that's one of the things that I'm sure is being worked out. Another thing to consider is if we are working under the assumption that Woodson is going to stick around for the rest of the season, Indiana better hope so, because if he doesn't, those players can go into the transfer portal quickly. The rule is you can go in if there's a coaching change. So those are practical things to consider that are probably being worked out today and, going forward. So, but, is the timing of this correct? I don't know that there's ever good timing for something like this, but I don't feel like this was not going to suddenly trend in the right direction. I feel like once you get a percentage of the fan base, and it's been increasing this year in terms of dissatisfaction with Mike Woodson, once that starts to happen, that's really hard to get back. I mean, you got to do something major to get those fans back on your side, because at the smallest sign of any kind of adversity, those fans are right back on your case again. So, and this wasn't trending in the right direction. So, in that sense, that's probably, a decision that was made by both. And maybe Mike Woodson himself was, getting tired of the stress of this. We don't know that yet. But when we talked to him on Tuesday, the nature of that loss certainly didn't put him in any kind of vibrant mood, nor should it have. But so those are some of the dynamics at work here.
So if you could fast forward 24 hours, guys, we will be approaching halftime of the Michigan-Indiana game tomorrow. How different do you think things could be? I mean, Todd, I think you've referenced that I think you both have, that there may be some sort of announcement from Indiana today. It is Friday afternoon. That's kind of how these things typically play out. Not always, but do you both expect something official from the school or from Mike Woodson within the next 24 hours?
Right. Well, what we wrote on our Hoosiers on SI site was that there was expected to be some sort of announcement before the game. When that exactly will be, we don't know. Sort of kind of what we've mentioned is they're sort of figuring out exactly what the exit strategy, if you want to call it, will be. So it seems like we'll have more clarity by the time the game tips off tomorrow, but exactly what that is, I mean, maybe Indiana doesn't even know what it looks like now, but That's sort of what a lot of reports have been saying.
I know we talked before we started recording. We wanted to keep this thing short and sweet a little bit. I see Todd kind of like glancing to the side. I'm like, is it happening now? Are we getting breaking news right now as we're recording? But that is a possibility. I guess, Todd, what this, like you said, this wasn't going to trend in the other direction suddenly or it would take something, kind of positively catastrophic in order for this to kind of reverse course. But, like, I guess just what are the, like, how bad of a deal is this? I mean, this is, like you said, there's eight Big Ten games left still, the Big Ten tournament. I mean, postseason play that's fading fading more and more every day. But this is not, this isn't how you like things to go as you're kind of finishing out a season.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. I mean, the players, you could go two ways with this. They could either kind of go into a shell and not put forth effort because they feel a part of they were either loyal to Woodson or they're tired of the stress of it. It could go the other way. I mean, pressure is taken off of this team, and suddenly maybe they play a little bit better. The truth is they'll probably keep playing the way they've been playing, and which is to say that they'll show up sometimes and other times they won't show up. I don't know that the coaching situation is going to be what is going to change that very much. There still are positive things this team has done. I know that sounds silly given the stretch they've been on, but for example, I was very surprised when I looked up the Big Ten stats this week, and Luke Goody is the Big Ten leader in 3-point percentage, for example. Omar Ballo is the leader in field goal percentage and rebounding. So there's pieces there that can make things happen. It's just a matter of whether they do happen. And, so I do feel for the players. I think it's a difficult situation to be put in. The players get paid now, but they're human beings. I feel for Mike Woodson. I mean, he's a human being. This is his alma mater. He wanted this to work. It's become clear that it isn't working, and I feel bad for the man. I do think he's endured some things that he shouldn't have had to endure. It's basketball. This isn't life or death, and so some of the worst of the fans, I would say, have embarrassed themselves. But it's a demanding place. And Indiana is not getting what it wants from its basketball program. And when that happens, Indiana is going to make a change. And that's where we're at.
Well, I think the other thing you sort of mentioned this, Todd, from a player standpoint is that, they still have things to play for, whether you're someone who has goals of making the NBA, you still have 8+ games to put film for scouts or coaches to say, to show what you can do, or if you're someone that still has collegiate eligibility, and whether you're coming back to Indiana next year and you can use these games to earn a role for next year, or if they're going to go somewhere else, these are still games that players can show something of, hey, to earn their own job, I guess is a way that you could phrase it. So while the big picture aspirations in terms of like making the tournament or some of the goals that Indiana had in the preseason might be quickly slipping away or gone already, I still think players can look at it from the perspective of, these are opportunities for me to show what I can do for the betterment of my own career. And whether they approach it with that mindset or not is, we'll kind of see. But it's not like, I wouldn't just expect kind of the last 8 games to sort of just coast and not have any effort shown, I guess is.
Well, you're right on all of that. The only problem with that is that if you have players looking out for themselves, that isn't exactly conducive to a team concept.
Right. It might not translate to wins. Right.
That's where it's going to come apart a little bit. I mean, if you have somebody who's trying to showcase themselves, not only is that bad for the product on the floor, it can create issues in the locker room too. I mean, to the point that that's important, which maybe it isn't. I mean, at this stage of the season, but either way, we don't know how the players are going to respond, completely. We'll see, but we'll see how they respond to a good Michigan team tomorrow too. I mean, even if everything was rosy, this would be a challenging game. So, there will be that aspect of it, and should be an interesting day at Assembly Hall tomorrow. A unique day, maybe a very unusual one.
Well, I mean, anything else, guys? Before we put a bow on this discussion, it is kind of it's weird to talk about the game. It's a little weird to talk about what might happen for the next 6 hours, even, and then certainly the next 24 as they do get ready to welcome, like you said, a pretty good Michigan team. When Mike Woodson might know, like, I'm done in 7 more games, and then all of a sudden Dusty May's like, dang, am I going to be the guy next? Like, there's just there's a lot that's going to be going on over the next 24 hours. So put a bow on it real quick, fellas, if you want to, and then we'll let you get back to the grind as we're all kind of waiting for some news a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just from a game perspective, I think it's interesting from the standpoint of Indiana and Michigan are similar in the way that they kind of, have, Indiana gets some criticism for playing the two big lineup, and Michigan kind of does that too. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out on the court. And then I guess just one more comment about the Woodson thing. I think it is sort of just unfortunate from like a perspective of the university that it has gotten to this point where it's like 2 seasons in a row that you've sort of had to make a statement on his status mid-season. Not that they've done anything official, but for this to be a topic of conversation, kind of just shows that, after there was some reason for optimism after 2 seasons, and it really just shows how quickly it's kind of fallen apart, and that we've gotten to this position at February 7th with 8 more Big Ten games left.
Well, there you have it. Todd and Jack always plugged in over at Indiana Hoosiers on SI. Keep it locked there, as I'm sure there will be more things to talk about, more stories to cover, and a pretty big game tomorrow, actually, too. So lots of stuff to check out. There'll be boots on the ground, as I said, and as news happens, they will be all over it. So thanks everybody for listening, and keep it locked in at Indiana Hoosiers on SI.